To those of you who are just joining us on the Hubilo platform, we'd like to say a really great Caribbean morning to you wherever you are, because some of you are in the region and some of you are extra regional. So I'd like to welcome you to the 17th Ministerial Seminar of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. And getting salutations out of the way, I'd like to greet the President of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, the Honorable Melford Nicholas, other distinguished ministers of government from the Caribbean with us, CTU member states, Chair of the Executive Council, other distinguished members of the Executive Council, permanent secretaries, technical advisors, senior government officials, the Secretary General of the CTU, members of the Diplomatic Corps, heads of international organizations, our brilliant sponsors, members of the media, and to you, each and every single one of you who are joining us online for this seminar today. It's my pleasure to welcome you. As I said before, I'm Josanne Leonard, was with you here on Monday and back with you here all day today, and I'll be your host for the proceedings. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce and invite Mr. Robert Willett, the former CEO of Best Buy International. He's a leader with significant international operating experience in the retail, multi-channel and technology industries, based on operating rules from M&S, I'm assuming that's Marks and Spencer's, to Best Buy, and chairman of Best Buy Mobile with the partnership with Carphone Warehouse, plus many years experience as the global managing partner of Andersen Consulting, Accenture's retail practice. Here's now Robert Willett to deliver a keynote address on COVID-19 and the shift to digital, a global perspective. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much indeed for the welcome, and thank you very much for the opportunity. I was asked to give you my perspectives as based on being a very simple shopkeeper as to the implications of COVID and the adoption of technology, not just in business, but also in society. First of all, as a visitor, homeowner and investor for the last 30 years in this beautiful island of Barbados, I am particularly keen from all aspects on ensuring that the Caribbean remains a paradise location to enjoy downtime for my friends, my family, my chums, and all of my Bayesian friends, and there are very many of them, to ensure that it prospers for future generations, not just this one. However, just to be quite candid about a number of points, first of all, I've just come off of a 3-hour Zoom call from 6 with my colleagues in Vietnam and Singapore. So, you know, that's the sort of far-reachingness of what's going on in this wonderful world of ours. And the world is changing rapidly. Travelers all over the world now have more choices as to where to travel and holiday than they ever did, even 5 years ago. So sitting back and expecting just to do more of the same and achieve great or even the same results, in my view, is the sort of height of insanity. It's going to bring about change. And if there's any upside to COVID, it's accelerated people's thinking and activities around the whole issue of the omni-channel, Wi-Fi, and augmented technology. This core factor, plus the rise of what I call digital natives, those people like me that were born between 1980 and 2012. They're a very savvy bunch of people. And they're actually internet savvy, technology savvy in the main, and they are the influencers as to what's going on. Plus the emergence of IoT, the Internet of Things, or as I prefer to say, the Internet of Everything. And finally, the convergence of technology across products, services. It's going to be profound, but a positive impact on society if it's appropriately embraced. And simple example, you know, your phone talking to your fridge and telling you you've only got one bottle of milk in the fridge, so it'll automatically order it for you. That's how far we've got, and much, much further. Digital transformation, what is it? It's all about using technology to continuously evolve all aspects of society, It's not about society choosing to transform. It's more about how to transform and adapt to a constantly changing environment. And it's very important that people understand that. So it's more about the how than the what. In the next 5 years, the digitized capabilities of individuals, companies, and countries will be profound. 75% of countries' organizations will use digital adoption solutions across the tech stack to overcome insufficient application user experiences. And some 50% of countries will use the same approach. That's an enormous change. And one has only got to look out across the world to see the recruitment requirements for people who can write code, understand how businesses operate. It's phenomenal. It's never been this great. And so that's something that we should, as a Caribbean country, learn from. And there is no option other than to embrace this trend and evolve, or you will be falling behind, where it will have the biggest impact in this country particularly, and that is on tourism. Tourism has been the major pillar of growth, and we will be left behind, not just by our visitors, but by the up and coming younger generation who will go elsewhere. And I'm seeing that already. So let's dispel the myths and legends that are around tech-enabled change that's going to replace human interaction. It's quite the reverse, and that's what concerns me. There's a complete misunderstanding about this. Augmented intelligence, or AI, goes beyond artificial intelligence by allowing us humans to work in tandem, not separately, but in tandem. AI data collection and analysis capabilities far surpass that of humans in both speed, time, and accuracy. But that's all the churn of hard work. And that's not what human beings should be doing. Human beings should be interpreting that information. So augmented intelligence is not about replacing employees with machines. AI collects and presents the data into insights that allows people to augment their knowledge with real actionable decisions. That's what human beings will do, and they'll do more of it as we start to have a joined up approach to technology, which the world has not had. And CARICOM, as a group of countries, could actually do so much more as an entity in its own right to actually bring about this much quicker than it has done to date, probably quicker than any group of countries, because of the need and the strength of tourism, where people want to have a great holiday, but they want also the other facilities. One of the strengths, or one of the strategies, I should say, that sets countries and companies apart is that they spend more time and funds transforming activities instead of just running them. And that's a really important point, because people always want to go faster with what they do, but it's actually about transformation, evolving, and taking people with you and listening to people's ideas to actually adapt. Just imagine if Barbados set out to have the fastest clearance through immigration and the fastest luggage collection than any other airport in the world. If you're a traveler to Barbados or any other country in the Caribbean, and they can say that and prove it, guess what? Everybody's coming. Because at the moment, travel is a chore. And I probably travel stupidly more than most. Turkey a few weeks ago, Vietnam, even with COVID, and the US and so on. And it's a chore, and it's not made pleasant. So I just look at that as one thing that digitization can bring to you. A critical factor in this digital transformation is the measurable impact we have to seek in terms of protecting the environment. That has to be foundational in any change processes. Solar panels, solar energy is a classic example. How quickly or quicker could we move if we adopted that technology and then used broadly across countries? Look at what that would do in terms of saving, but also what would it do in terms of the environment? Moving to different types of digital transformation just briefly, and I'll highlight 3 key areas for any country or company for that matter. First of all, customer employees experience, working to increase growth by creating more customer digital touch points, by analyzing the detailed critical path to deliver lifetime value, not simply transactional value. People always look at your immediate basket spend or what you immediately spend and do, instead of saying, what's the lifetime value that I get from this person, etc., and using the data to support that. That's the way that the world is going, and successful companies are the ones that deal with that. Operational processes, collecting data to monitor performance, informing strategic business decisions. We do this utilizing digitization, automation, and digital tools, moving away from the very manual approaches currently. And then finally, to business models, providing a shared services approach, not literally with different companies, but internally within companies or within countries, a shared services approach by augmenting physical tools and services and introducing digital products and technologies that keep the cost down, but also improve productivity, because the folk using those tools and that data have much more, they get much more out of their jobs, much more interesting in just doing basic number crunching work. That's not interesting. Machines will always do that faster, better, and more accurately. But human beings are the best at interpreting that data. But a key enabler to this, or any transformation, is culture. As resistance to change is a human instinct. Ignore it, and you will hit walls. So change agents within countries, within the Caribbean, within companies, etc., are a critical part of any transformation, more so with the digitization factor. And the point to make here is, of course, you can't make omelets without cracking eggs. So one has to tell the truth, one has to embrace things and involve people. It's important to do things with people, not to them. And that's unfortunately all too often what happens. And it happens here as well. So we need to step back a bit and just look and listen. And that's not a strength of many of us in leadership, and I include myself sometimes in that as well. So let's just look now, because I know I don't have lots of time, and we could spend a whole day on this digitization and augmented technology. We could spend a day on it at least. But let's look at some examples where we could start a digital transformation. And I start with the single view of capability for citizens. The single view for citizens. To simplify the transactions and the data that governments naturally need, but simplify the way to do it. So much at the moment is so paper-driven. It's not difficult to produce a driving license, plastic, that has my fingerprint in it or my eye recognition in it, and actually speed up all of the approaches that we have. Instead of having to take paper and get in a queue for 3 or 4 hours, I can pay my land tax. I can do all of this, land tax, my health records, car registration, driving license. I can do all of that through one doc that removes paperwork, speeds it up so that people can then do more interesting things. I mean, just consider the time. Just obtaining driving permits. Even though you've got a license elsewhere in the world, you've then got to get a doctor, and you've got to do this, and it could all be done, and it's the right thing to do. There's no question, but it could all be done using technology. In this country particularly, I can't take my mobile phone with me, my mobile phone number. If I change from one carrier to the other, I can't transport my telephone number. I need another telephone number. Well, how can that be? And so those are the sorts of things that I think governments need to step back, and they need to take a look at some of these things that make it difficult for visitors, it makes it difficult for citizens. How can we take some of those things and look at the critical path and then digitize it? It is so easy to do. And back to my luggage, fast luggage collection at any airport. If Barbados came forward and created flows of information through the digital world, and keep in mind, I'm on a flight for 8 hours before I even arrive here, so they know I'm coming, and they know that I've got one bag. and yet they've got all my passport detail. Why can't I just flow straight through? Why don't we actually look at actually placing people in the UK, as America does in Canada? When I clear customs in Vancouver, I clear customs through the American system in Vancouver. When I get off the plane, it's just a local flight. It makes it so easy. And when it comes to visitors coming to these beautiful islands, because as I keep saying to my family, I mean, if heaven's like Barbados, then I can't get there quick enough. You know, it's paradise. And the most wonderful thing about it is its people. The people are wonderful people, but they deserve better. And technology can do that for them. It can make life simpler for them. You know, and I'm just using one example of how we could improve the flow of visitors to the country. You know, solar energy is another one. I mean, police stop you for speeding. They have to get on the phone to find out if your car's insured and who owns it. And yet it could all be done with a mobile phone. There is so many little things that could make life so much simpler. You know, and bold strategies win. Mediocre ones don't win. And I can tell you that from running companies in China, Vietnam, America, and the UK, where one has just gone with the tide doesn't work. And there's no country in the world that has the beauty of the Caribbean. Beautiful people, beautiful food, weather's unbelievable, but it's just a wonderful place. But what worries me is in the next 5 years, with the transformation that's taking place, and I know it's going on because of the work I do with MIT and all other places, it is people are thinking so differently, and it'll happen. And it's very important that the Caribbean is not left behind. And it's very important for the young people that grow up in this beautiful country. You want them to stay here and contribute, because there's some really smart kids in this country, very smart people, but they need help in terms of this approach. So for me, using BPR, using business process review, take each of these elements and just say, right, let's go through the whole process of getting a driving license. Bang, back, right, how can we digitize that? Paying the land tax, let's do the same. Let's go through all of these things. One of the examples I'll leave you with is around health. If you consider, you travel anywhere, and if you're not well, or whether it's something that is known or not known, there's a lot of activity that has to take place wherever you go to understand your blood and the actual situations of all facets of your body. Just imagine if all that data in your home country is in your phone, and it's written in a way with what's called shards, and that cannot be broken into. It's not just encrypted, it's tokenized. And the signals are sent out to the multi-parts of the cloud. And so people can't actually break into it. I know, because we've developed something similar. It took us 4 years, and all sorts of agencies, including the FBI, have tried to break into it. So we know it's safe. And what we're trying to do is create a situation where everyone's health record in the world is held in their own phone, and they are the only ones that have access to it. At the moment, insurance companies have it, doctors have it, hospitals have it, all sorts of people have it. And it's right and proper that it's controlled by the individual. That's all entirely possible. So, you know, for me, that's what I would do. If I was in any sort of role from a government perspective, and I'm not, because I'm not very good at that sort of stuff, but running companies, the first thing one looks at is operation simplification. How can I simplify all of the processes in my company so that my employees, in Mobile World, we have now 82,000. In my old business, we had 280,000 employees. How can I make life so much simpler by taking all the grunge away, digitizing it, so they can spend all of their time facing off with customers, helping customers, but using insights that AI and augmented technology provides them. I'm going to shut up at this point and see if there are any questions. I apologize if I've offended anybody. I don't mean to, but I feel very, very passionate about what this country and the Caribbean can do and needs to do. And the concern I have is making sure that wherever there's a voice, that someone listens to the need to do this, because there's not many places more beautiful than this in the world. And being a Welshman, you know, where we get lots of rain on a regular basis, you can never see as much sunshine as you do, but smiling faces. People here are so lovely, but the fish rots from their head. Yeah. Don't ever look at the soldiers, look at the officer corps. That's where the problem starts. That's where the treacle is. It's not in the front troops. So I will shut up and take any questions that anybody has.
Thank you very much, Robert. And please stand by, because after our next presentation, we'll be fielding a couple of questions. I'd quickly like to go now to Mr. Antonio Quiroz, the Public Relations Manager for Huawei Caribbean and Latin America. Mr. Quiroz has significant experience in public management with previous engagement in UNESCO World Heritage Institute of Training and Research in Asia and the Pacific region. He'll now deliver a presentation on developing ICT talent for digital transformation and innovation. Mr. Quiroz?
Thank you very much, Josan. Hello, everyone. Nigel, Mr. Robert Willett, everyone from the Secretariat at CTU, and all the distinguished audience that are watching us today. It's a pleasure for me to be here today, an honor. Thank you very much to CTU for the opportunity to be here. Thank you, Rosanne, for the introduction. And I want to briefly say something about my background. Just as Josan said, I had previous engagement in the UNESCO Center for Training and Research for the Asia Pacific region. And that's very curious because my background is clearly not in ICT. My background is more in social impact and cultural heritage. However, the way I was engaged, I was involved first in the ICT industry was precisely through talent development. When I was working the UNESCO Center for Training and Research Center for the Asia Pacific region, I realized through different projects how the ICT sector, how these technologies were helping the cultural heritage protection, cultural heritage research being more effective, and as well as saving time and costs in all of these practices. However, I also realized that there was a huge problem there, and it was that people involved in the cultural heritage protection was not tech savvy. They lacked all the digital skills that they needed to use the new technologies such as cloud, AI, etc., to develop new applications that could be useful for the protection of the cultural heritage. So that's how I became also part of the ICT sector by going through first introduction to all these technologies through the center. And now I'm very happy to work here at Huawei in one of the topics that I'm very passionate about, which is training and talent development. We're just talking about ICT talent development to accelerate the digital transformation. So for that, let's take just a brief introduction on why or how the digital transformation is driving economic development. And just here, some key figures that I could take from our Huawei Global ICT Vision for 2025. And that is that, well, it's a little bit old, this figure, but that in 2016, the whole ICT industry was equivalent to 15% of the global GDP. And this is clearly thanks to all the way it was also like developing transportation, finance, professional services, and of course many other industries. And I think we all know like what are like the key advantages of this. We're looking to a world that is moving, to all the things connected, all the things sensing, and all the things intelligent. Whole connected world, whole intelligent world. So looking back a little bit in the industry, in the development industry, we see like how in the agriculture economy, we had people like the workforce was more focused on how to develop irrigation and transportation. Later on in the industrial economy, how transportation was also developing, and how the workforce needed to know how to manage heavy machinery. Now in the digital economy, we're not only having all of these, we're also having increasingly smart cities, smart logistics, etc., etc. And I think Mr. Robert Willett made a great job of introducing all of the development of different industries and how we can leverage and how we can use all these new technologies in all of this. So for having all of these smart logistics, smart campus, smart cities, we need people who are able to conduct research, who are able to use the new technologies, who are able to drive these major science and technologies in all the industries as well, not only the ICT sector per se. We see here just briefly how almost every country in the world, they have at least one piece of strategy moving towards ICT. Some strategies in some countries are more thorough and they have embraced very well the need for developing talent, right? Like I can cite an example here in the region, for example, in Colombia, where the new law for innovation facilitates universities to commercialize all the research and all the technology that they develop. So that is a great example of how this technology strategy, this ICT strategy, can also promote the talent development. Okay. So now more than ever, government and private companies can take advantage of affordable and scalable systems to test new ideas, evolve more quickly to meet the needs of their citizens and customers, etc. So in this digital world, to do this, where everything is connected, the ICT industry depends heavily on these high-skilled resources. However, not many institutions, or better said, many institutions, many companies have not started yet that transformation, that journey, because they lack that workforce with the advanced skills that they need for this transformation. So this means that despite this booming in the labor market that is offering, different regions around the world are currently facing a digital workforce shortage. And if this is not effectively addressed, potential talent deficit in the region, including this region, Latin America and the Caribbean region, could be a hindering force for this development of the ICT sector. Okay, so developing ICT talent is not only important because of these reasons that I just mentioned, which would be slowing down on the development of the ICT sector, but also because it is a good way for also promoting the sustainability of the society and the digital economy per se. And I can say, for example, one, bridging different economic gaps, right? Second, bridging digital gender gap as well. Promoting the education in ICT sector for women is also very important for bridging that gender gap that is also represented in different other gaps like economic gap. Last but not least, just as I mentioned, talent would be one of the main reasons why innovation is not being put forward in different countries. We see clearly how the talent development is also included in the digital agenda for Latin America and the Caribbean by the ILAC. And we can see how, like here, it addresses different key points, such as updating curriculum content, continuous education in governments and companies so that their workers can improve their productivity and efficiency. Also promoting all this new knowledge in the general public so that the society can also adapt to live in this new environment, just as Mr. Willett was also mentioning. So this process of ICT talent development is actually very complicated and many actors are involved. So it requires different steps, right? Like getting to know the ecosystem that you have locally through insight and high-level planning, doing role design and skill maps of the skills that you need locally, what are the industries that you are developing locally, what are the skills that they need, and of course, a learning map implemented and assess, of course, like the efficiency of this through different, for example, what we use is certifications. So the actors involved actually, this is a very complicated process, complete process, I would say, that involves different actors in the industry, such as infrastructure providers, education and training centers, chambers and other private entities, and of course, government and their policies. So here we're looking at a joint effort between government and the private sector. Only this joint effort can accelerate that development of ICT talent. So in the talent ecosystem here in Huawei, through our experience, we have identified that there is three main aspects: education, industry, and public. So when we talk about education, is like I just mentioned, ensuring that education in the long term is also matched with the needs, with the new needs of the industry and the society. This means updating the curriculum, et cetera, et cetera. So the industry, this doesn't only mean filling the gap in the ICT industry that we need for that talent, but it also means that all the different industries have skilled talent that know how to use the new technologies, know how to leverage these new technologies for creating new services, for improving the experience of their customer, etc. And public, of course, this means creating an inclusive culture of digital talent, of digital skills, where everyone in this society knows how to live, knows how to adapt to this new environment, to these new opportunities as well. If we have, for example, different governmental procedures that we need to do, and they're available online, we can do it in a digital way, then everyone in the society should be able to know how to do it and to have access to it. So that's also part of that. So, sorry. So first of all, education. Just very briefly here, just as I said, different actors are involved in this process, and different actors clearly have their own main responsibilities in this process. And here I'm presenting just how here in Huawei, we do it from our own perspective as an infrastructure provider. We engage with universities to drive innovation and entrepreneurship. We provide students with basic theory, practical skills training, innovative thinking, and of course, the opportunity to apply this knowledge in their own projects. So that's something that we do, and we think that has been very useful. Of course, we know that education sector is very complicated, and we partner up with all the main organizations in charge of education because we know that we need to work under their guidance for doing this, right? So this is just a few of these centers that we have partnered up with, like the Center for Higher Education Innovation, under the auspices of the UNESCO, the Economic Commission for Latin America, Caribbean, and there are many agencies for education, etc. So for the industry as well, just as I mentioned, we need to do an insight on how this industry is looking, what are the needs of these industry, etc. So we start by doing a talent consultancy service, what we assess the talent model they need, then the gaps that they need to fill in, the cultivation planning, etc. Then we move forward to the talent cultivation, applying all the different technologies that this industry specifically needs, and of course, assessing how this process has been useful or not for this industry, and what are the new needs that this industry needs to take attention to. So for the public, just as I mentioned, is creating this public culture of talent development. And for raising awareness to the public on the digital talent development, we want to work with organizations and with governments clearly to work under the guidelines on how this should look like. So, for example, with the UNESCO Regional Office for Education Latin America and the Caribbean, we have signed a letter of intent through which we had identified different needs in the region, such as, for example, providing more educational programs relating to these new technologies for women and young people, looking at filling in different gaps, just such as like the gender gap, and of course, looking at long-term strategy. We're working right now on a project that will very likely, and we will try to make it reality in the Caribbean region as well. So we're also having very briefly this program here through the Mexico Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but we are targeting this program to all the 32 country members of the CELAC. This includes a lot of countries in the Caribbean region, and we will offer this educational program to 30 women in each of these countries, where we're going to be providing online self-study, live stream courses, experts guidance, and a certification if they pass all the exams. And we will work directly from the regional office of Huawei here. So in terms of also increasing the awareness in the public, we work in different countries for the different needs locally, such as Colombia. We're looking at more at a technology accelerator, aiming to empower this startup. In Argentina, we're also working in the bridging the digital gender gap. In Central America, we're looking at free educational material. And in the Caribbean, we're also working mainly through our Seeds for the Future program, which is Huawei's flagship talent educational program that in the past was about bringing 10 students from each country to China to spend 2 weeks in the HQ of Huawei learning directly from technology experts. However, as of last year, because of the pandemic, we had to move online, which was actually very useful for bringing these opportunities to more students, not only 10 students per country. So I'm very happy to announce that as of this year, we're going to have Suriname joining the program as well, together with Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica and Guyana, countries that in the past have also joined the program. So this is just a brief introduction of how what is the vision of Huawei about the talent, the ICT talent development, and how we, as part also of this process, work with different stakeholders to also develop this talent ecosystem in the region. Last but not least, if you are interested, you can also follow all the different accounts for relating to talent development of Huawei. And we will be very happy that in the future, we can also bring more of these opportunities and work also with other agencies and even other companies in the region for the development of the ecosystem in the Caribbean region. Thank you very much, Josan. Thank you very much, Nigel. That would be all, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Antonio, for that comprehensive presentation. And I'm sure that there are going to be a lot of questions, and you're going to get a lot of feedback on a lot of the information that has been shared in terms of particularly on the public-private sector partnerships and the rest of it. If I can see, or if I can be prompted, do we have any questions and or comments from our online participants?
There are no questions at this time.
Well, there are no, okay.
Well, let me ask one.
So then Nigel is going to fire one.
Yes. Actually, I wanted to initially point it to Robert, because he made, one of the statements he made was bold strategies win.
Oh my, I put the same thing on my notes.
So
here.
I wanted to ask him if he had any bold strategies that he wanted to suggest as regards the talent development. And he himself mentioned in terms of Barbados that we have talented young people that we need to keep in the region. So I wanted to ask him that, but maybe as Antonio is here and he has explored the topic in depth, Antonio, probably you could suggest to us maybe what are the boldest things we can do as far as developing talent in the Caribbean, notwithstanding what Huawei might offer, and that could be part of your answer. But I'm saying, what do you think are the things that could have the biggest impact in terms of building the talent and keeping the talent in the region? Oh, here's Robert.
Thank you, Nigel. Oh, Robert. Mr. Robert.
Robert is back. Antonio, you can chime in on that as well, but I'll also just brief Robert. Robert, we had reference to your comment about bold strategies winning, and you made the comment that that we needed to keep our talent in the region and develop our talent in the region as well. And I was wondering, based on your assertion, whether there were any bold strategies you could have suggested to us for that purpose. And if we could get some comments from both of you, it would be very good. So, Robert first.
I think I break those things into two. First of all, the short term. I mean, there is clearly an urgent need, and the government obviously have done everything they can, but COVID is COVID, and these resurgences of the bug will continue, and they'll live. We will live with this for a long time, I guess. But what do we do immediately to enhance people's views in distant lands about how good and safe it is here? Because social media is good, but it's also sends some really negative messages. I mean, you only get one person on social media in the UK or Europe or even the US for that matter about this, that, and the other to do with COVID, and people suddenly get very hesitant. Then they misinterpret curfews and so on. And so for me, it's about saying, right, what could we do now? And I made the point about luggage transferring through the island and so on quickly with luggage, but also the fastest immigration, etc. The island needs to do something dramatic. And that's why I'm saying bold strategies work. So there's an immediate situation to protect the business that is done here in the autumn and early January, February, which is very substantial. You know, September is a very quiet time on this island, as it is every year. And I'm never normally here, but because of travel, I've ended up back here, but I'm off again shortly. But I would want to deal with that now in order to safeguard where we are. And if I was, a minister or whatever in this country, I would be looking at, right, what can we do today to sort that out and give people, because the majority of people coming to the island come from the UK, why don't we have 5 or 6 people in the terminal over there resolving problems so that when they get off the plane here, they just pass through? Why couldn't that happen? And I know it costs money, but it costs even more money if you don't get visitors to the island. You know, and there's a lot of people, naysayers in this world who, you know, they don't take risks. And, you know, frankly, if you've been vaccinated twice, I don't care, you know, how old you are, unless you've got real problems, then you've got to be very careful. But you've got to be careful anyway. And this island does take, you know, precautions. There's curfews in place. There's all sorts of things, you know, some of them rightly or wrongly, but that's what's happened. But people try hard here to protect people. But we need to go beyond that. So there's a short-term situation. The long-term, medium-term, I should say, is around education and also involving young people. You know, there are various community universities here, community colleges that try and do their best. But I don't feel that there's a coordinated effort. If there is, I don't know about it. And there must be in CARICOM some really good examples. I mean, there are some smart islands here that face these problems, and they're smart people. Why aren't the prime ministers of the various countries coming up with a strategy to deal with that now? Because the future of this country isn't about people like me. You know, I'm an old fart down the runway. You want them to come back and stay here and work and thrive. That's only going to happen if you actually have a determined strategy to deal with it. And I don't believe that there is, because I can't. You talk to multiple people here, and you don't get one answer.
Yeah.
So those are the two things that I think one has to deal with. But the immediate situation is to protect people's livelihoods and the economy now. And the only way to do that is to boldly do something. And my point about the airport is the way that people come in here, it needs to be much, much simpler than it is today. And I've been through this airport probably more times than most. Yeah. So I've seen it did its best. And I've seen it when 3 or 4 flights come in at once and people can be hours in the queue with young children. And that's not that. They tell people talk to people, and that inhibits things.
Yeah. Antonio?
I would say I also have points. I will try to be very brief and quick. First of all, I think like something very bold that we need to do when it comes to talent development and to when it comes to developing that talent, IT talent, is daring to do it and daring to believe. Oftentimes, young people also, even young people, believe that this kind of technologies won't work in their own society or won't work in their own country. So I would say the boldest thing they can do is go and explore those technologies, go and study how those technologies can improve your environment, your industry, your country. And second, I want to echo something that that Mr. Robert said that I pretty much agree with, is involving young people. So oftentimes we have all these educational programs for young people, right? We teach them in the classroom. We teach them also probably like in a university classroom or in a Huawei classroom, let's say. But when we involve them directly in the projects, in the joint efforts that, for example, government and enterprises are doing for the digital transformation, when we give them the opportunity to gain hands-on experience in this transformation, then they became very passionate about that transformation in their countries. And that's when they can say, I will stay here for Barbados in Barbados, or here in the Caribbean for the Caribbean. So I think these two things are very important to do. Thank you, Jason and Nigel.
I'm so sorry to have to rush you because this always happens when you have very rich conversations. So I'd like to thank you both for your presentations this morning and to encourage the online participants that through the platform, the Hubilo platform, you can continue to interact. You can send your questions and comments directly to both speakers this morning. Robert and Antonio, thank you both so very much. You really enriched the conversation and set the right tone for the rest of the day. Thank you. Have a great day.
And you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.